After being disowned by my family over 8 years ago, they've reached out to invite me, my 27-year-old wife, and another female acquaintance for Christmas. I've received a mix of advice from friends, with one suggesting I turn to this online community for insight. I'm a 25-year-old male, the youngest of 4 kids born to my 52-year-old mom and 54-year-old dad. My siblings, whom I'll refer to as Michael, 31, male, Sarah, 28, female, and my twin brother Carl, 25, male, all excelled in physical sports. My dad was a star basketball player at AITA School. My mom played volleyball. Michael excelled in soccer, Sarah in softball, and Carl was the star running back on the football team. I, on the other hand, showed an early interest in archery, which my family regarded as a wimpy sport. They seldom attended my events, and I often had to plead for their presence. Between the ages of 14 and 16, I participated in around 20 archery tournaments, while my parents only showed up to one. Though I wasn't neglected, they were emotionally distant, leaving me feeling overshadowed by my siblings. When I tried to address this, they labeled me an attention seeker. However, my disownment wasn't related to these issues. At 15, I began dating Amy, who was also 15 at the time. We introduced her to my family, and they liked her. However, almost 2 years later, one of Amy's former friends revealed that she had been cheating on me with an unnamed guy. Confronting her, she confessed that it was my twin brother, Carl. She claimed her feelings for him had surpassed those for me. Enraged, I confronted Carl at home, resulting in a physical altercation where I punched him and knocked him out. Although my violent reaction was regrettable, it was the culmination of years of resentment toward him and my family. To avoid legal consequences, my family agreed not to press charges against me. Instead, I was sent to live with my estranged paternal aunt, who lived 2 hours away and was 48 years old at the time. Since then, I've had no contact with my immediate family. Initially challenging, I've managed to move forward with the support of my aunt and her 48-year-old husband, gradually letting go of the desire to mend the broken relationship with my family. I transferred to a different high school and eventually attended a university in my aunt's city, where I graduated as an electrical engineer. Later, I met my wife and married her. When it came time to plan our wedding, I considered inviting my estranged family, but I decided against it to avoid any potential drama. My wife and I purchased a house an hour away from my aunt's place, and we were blessed with a daughter about a year ago. Recently, I received a Facebook message from my parents expressing a desire to reconnect over Christmas at their house. I told them I'd think about it as I might have other plans, but promised to provide a clear answer soon. In the meantime, both Michael and Sarah sent me friend requests on social media, which felt rather strange. My wife, who is 2 months pregnant, suggested that if I chose to go, she and our daughter would spend Christmas at her father's house to avoid unnecessary stress. I agreed with her, considering her well-being. My dilemma is whether to go and attempt to reconcile with my family or not. I'm torn on what to do. On one hand, it's possible they feel remorse for what they did to me and want to apologize. On the other hand, there's the fear that if I go, they might pressure me to apologize to Carl, something I'm not willing to do. Any advice on this matter would be greatly appreciated. Top advice before reading the update. I think you should go another time. Spend Christmas with your wife and child. Visit your family at a less stressful time to see if they have any ulterior motives. It might just be about them wanting to see their grandchildren and not necessarily about you, which would be hurtful to you. Yeah, I agree. Go another time. I was thinking the same thing. It could be related to the grandkids. Spend Christmas with your wife and child. Christmas is too big of an event to meet them. Also, please update us. I can't get this post out of my head. I can't imagine a parent kicking out their child who was betrayed by their other child. They might want to reconnect due to money or their grandchild. I don't know, but it's weird that even his siblings texted OP. I hope it's for good reasons, though. I wouldn't consider spending Christmas away from my pregnant wife for them. Maybe I'm missing something, but why choose Christmas to reach out? They could have contacted me at any time and given me the chance to choose a convenient time to reconnect. They're the ones trying to mend things, so their timing seems odd to me. I personally wouldn't go unless you truly want them back in your life. The situation seems fishy to me. It's possible they found out about my successful child and are now attempting to heal the family image to avoid looking like they abandoned their son years ago. It feels like a trap. I noticed they didn't open with any remorse or sign of an apology. They might want something from me: money, free work, an organ, or access to my children. Or maybe they just want to appear good to their friends. I'm not saying don't go, but keep your expectations low. Be prepared for them to ask me to do something for them in order to reconcile properly and have a quick exit strategy ready. As a parent, I can't fathom going no contact with one of my children for 8 years, especially after the other child did something so cruel to them that they had to resort to hitting them. It's inconceivable to me. I would understand if my son hit his brother under such circumstances. We're all human, and moving past the fact that they abandoned me and turned their backs for 8 years is my choice. Personally, I'm not sure if I could. If I can't or don't want to see them again, I doubt anyone would blame me. If they do blame me, they don't know the full story. And if they do know the full story and still blame me, they're not worth my time either. Now for the update. I wanted to post earlier, but some things got in the way. 2 days after Christmas, my wife began experiencing unbearable pain in her abdomen area. She could hardly stand on her 2 feet. Her sister and I rushed her to the hospital, where we learned that my wife had suffered a miscarriage and that the fetus had to be removed right away. The worst part for me was explaining to my wife what had happened. Due to complications surrounding the operation, my wife had to stay in the hospital for 2 more days. I've been trying to stay strong for my wife and daughter, but honestly, I'm struggling right now. As for the updates on the original post, most of you who commented on the same day advised me not to spend Christmas with them due to the significance of that holiday. I agreed with the advice and decided to spend the rest of the holidays with my wife. When I texted my family, stating my decision, I expected them to argue with me. Surprisingly, they responded by saying they respected my opinion and looked forward to seeing me after the holidays. Curiosity got the best of me, and I started digging into my family to understand why they had reached out after all these years. I found out that Michael is a corporate lawyer working for a major company in our hometown, married with 2 daughters. Sarah, on the other hand, appeared to be married to a doctor and had a son. 8 years ago, she was studying to be a nurse. My friend, whose parents were friends with mine, informed me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, the one she was dating 8 years ago, due to mail fraud. Carl, my twin, married Amy right after high school, and they have 2 kids. I couldn't pinpoint their exact occupations, but the fact that they bought a big house last year suggested they were financially stable. My dad seemed to be going through a midlife crisis, while my mother was heavily involved in the wellness community. I tried to analyze why they might want to reconnect. One possibility was money, but considering my siblings' financial stability, that seemed unlikely. Another suggestion was organ donation, although it didn't make sense given that Carl, my likely match as my twin, was seen skiing in a Facebook post just a week before Christmas. Then there was the matter of my daughter. They might be reaching out to have a relationship with her. Although she wasn't their first granddaughter, I suspected they found out about her through my wife's public Facebook account. My next step was to contact my estranged aunt, the one who took me in, and inform her about the situation. She explained to me why my grandparents had disowned her. After college, she came out as bisexual and started dating her girlfriend, leading to immediate dissownment. However, about 4 years ago, my grandpa began to reconnect, and recently, he had been inquiring about me, my life, marriage, and whether I had kids. My aunt's response was swift and confrontational. She directly challenged my grandpa for his sudden interest in my life, particularly after he had supported Carl for his actions. That's when the whole situation took a surprising turn. Grandpa explained that he believed I deserved to be estranged because, According to him, I had cheated on Amy with one of her close friends. He viewed cheating as a grave offense due to his religious beliefs. According to my family's version of events, the friend who I allegedly cheated with confessed to Amy, who then sought comfort from Carl and Sarah. When I learned about this, I confronted Carl and Sarah, attacking them brutally. Sarah, who had attempted to mediate between me and Carl, was unharmed during the confrontation. Hearing this revelation from my aunt left me in shock. I couldn't fathom the depths of their animosity, leading them to concoct such a terrible lie about me. Later, my aunt disclosed the whole truth to Grandpa, who was utterly shocked as he had always believed Carl to be a good kid. Grandpa then demanded my aunt to provide my phone number, but she refused. I eventually uncovered the real reason my parents and siblings had reached out to me. It turned out Grandpa had given them an ultimatum. Either they apologize for their past mistreatment and invite me to the family Christmas dinner, or they would be cut off from his vast fortune. He was a multimillionaire, and their financial greed motivated their sudden interest in reconciling. Instead of seeking genuine reconciliation for their past wrongdoings, they were driven by selfish motives. After learning the truth from my aunt, I decided to cut all ties with them. Why should I respond to people who only valued me for the potential inheritance they could gain? In my eyes, they were all dead to me. I had a supportive wife to care for, a family that respected and loved me, and supportive in-laws who were there for us. However, the story didn't end there. 3 days after New Year's Eve, I received an unexpected call on my work phone from an unknown number. Despite being accustomed to such calls due to my career, I picked up, only to hear my grandfather's voice on the other end. He must have obtained my number from my company's website. Surprisingly, his first words were an apology for not attempting to contact me over the past 8 years. He expressed his apologies for missing significant milestones in my life, such as my graduation, wedding, and the birth of my daughter. Frankly, I hadn't been particularly close to him before, so his decision to cut me off financially didn't affect me deeply. As our conversation continued, he revealed his disgust for the rest of my family and stated that he was cutting them off as well, adding me to the list. I found myself conflicted about this news. While the money would undeniably be helpful, I didn't want him to manipulate the situation to force a relationship between me and my daughter. Our conversation lasted about half an hour, during which I began to think that perhaps I could build a genuine connection with my grandpa. However, my feelings changed abruptly when he made a comment that infuriated me. He expressed disappointment that my daughter hadn't taken the family name. To provide some context, after marrying my wife, we discussed using her last name for our future children due to legal constraints preventing me from adopting her name. We made this decision together as a couple. At that moment, I couldn't contain my anger and let loose on my grandpa, labeling him as a senile old man and hurling hurtful words. I made it clear that I never wanted him to contact me again. The audacity of his comment, considering what I had gone through, was beyond infuriating. I resolved not to let him use any potential inheritance to control me. Even if I received the money, my plan was to donate it to a local charity. However, given his history of empty promises, this outcome seemed unlikely. The past few weeks had been incredibly challenging for me. My wife had taken measures to protect our privacy by privatizing her Facebook account, and my in-laws had done the same. How my estranged family planned to contact me remained a mystery, although I suspected they might resort to extreme measures, perhaps even hiring a private detective. As far as I knew, they didn't have information about where I currently lived, but one could never be too certain. I've considered getting a restraining order, but it's complicated given the presence of lawyers in the family. I didn't get the chance to answer some questions from my last post before it was inexplicably deleted. I'll try my best to respond to any questions over the next day or two, but after this, I won't be using the site for a while. Thank you all for your advice, and I wish you the best in this new year. I am profoundly sorry for your loss, OP. I can't even begin to fathom the pain you and your wife must be enduring. Your family's behavior is beyond belief. Their audacity knows no bounds. They don't deserve any more of your time and energy. Forget about them. I genuinely hope they don't bother you anymore, allowing you to focus on your family at home. Thank you for taking the time to update us. Please accept my condolences. I hope your wife recovers soon. Your family has faced some difficult weeks, but don't let these people get to you. Regarding your grandpa's comments about the last name, at least the truth is out, exposing their true colors. Let your grandpa keep the money if it comes your way before you make any decisions. Take your time and think it over calmly. You've chosen wonderful people as your family, your wife, daughter, and in-laws. They are the ones who truly matter. The rest of them can go to hell. I'm sorry for all you've been through and the loss of your child. Remember, you have a family that loves and supports you. You are wanted and cherished by them, even if your parents and siblings don't see it. Please seek professional support and help for yourself and your wife. You've been through a lot, and it's crucial to have the right support. As for the situation with your granddad, it might have convinced him that your aunt's claims were false, especially since they tried to portray you as unstable. While you had every right to be offended, you may have acted impulsively. I understand you've been through a lot, and this might have been the final straw for you. It's just a different perspective to consider. Sending you love and strength. I genuinely hope your wife gets better soon, and I hope the new year brings positive changes for you. At the end of the day, how your granddad perceives you shouldn't matter. A relationship based on money isn't genuine. This might affect the relationship your aunts and grandpa have, but truthfully, they never really had a meaningful relationship to begin with.
I knew my father would be released from jail in about 2 years, but I had surrounded myself with enough support and security that he wouldn't dare approach me again. Finally, I had found peace, a tranquility I hoped to carry with me for the rest of my life. After that horrifying incident, life slowly began to regain its normalcy. About a year later, I found myself immersed in the everyday routines. 6 months after the incident, I met someone special through a dating app, and we grew deeply attached to each other. My business prospered, and everything seemed to fall into place. The police station where my father was incarcerated repeatedly called, urging me to talk to him, to accept his apologies. I paid no heed. After all he had done, second chances weren't something he deserved. Fast forward 2 years, and I found myself getting married to the same wonderful man I had met on the dating platform. My fiancé was everything I had ever wanted. He knew about my past, supported me in every decision, and made it his mission to ensure my happiness and comfort. During the wedding, in the absence of a father to walk me down the aisle, my best friend's father, the man who had welcomed me into their family, did the honor. I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude toward all the incredible people in my life. They had helped me heal and move forward. However, as the celebration continued, we were interrupted by a commotion at the main entrance. Rushing there, I discovered a man attempting to force his way into the wedding uninvited. I instantly recognized him. He was my father. His yelling and curses sent shivers down my spine. When his eyes met mine, he uttered, "My sweet daughter, I wanted to meet you for so long. Come to your father." His words felt like a nightmare, and before I knew it, everything went black and I lost consciousness. Upon waking, my husband was by my side, reassuring me that my father had been taken to a mental hospital. He wasn't mentally well and had been diagnosed with several issues. My husband promised that I would never have to see him again, even suggesting we could relocate if it made me feel safer. The relief I felt at the prospect of never seeing my father again was indescribable. My husband and I moved, and together we ran our businesses. Besides occasional short trips, we mostly worked from home. I had spent my life searching for peace, and finally, I had found it with my new family. Having faced similar challenges with difficult parents, I understand the struggles you've endured. You were never the one at fault in this situation. I hope you always find peace and happiness. Best of luck. Your father's actions were despicable. He deserves to be in jail indefinitely. Who treats their children this way? I'm so glad you've escaped that nightmare, and your father is the only one to blame. Wishing you endless peace and love. Now let's dive into the second story. I am a 25-year-old woman who owns a beautiful 4-bedroom house. I purchased my house when I was 23. after allowing my business partner to take our shared assets in exchange for $600,000. We co-owned several properties, having made our first purchase together when we were 20 and 21 during our dating days. Even though our romantic relationship didn't work out, we remained business partners. Shortly after my 23rd birthday, I closed the deal on my house. At that time, I was only working part-time while managing our properties. Starting with just a few belongings from my old apartment, my new home remained mostly empty for months. My dream was always to become a pastry chef, and a local community college offered a program that allowed you to obtain a certificate for free with 16 weeks of classes. That's where I met my fiancé, James, a 27-year-old chef at a high-end restaurant. We connected instantly, and he became an integral part of my life, even helping me set up my bakery. James proposed to me in Jamaica on August 8, 2022. When we returned home, I moved in with him. I had spent months perfecting recipes in my kitchen, which I meticulously designed to my liking. I often put my phone on Do Not Disturb mode to eliminate distractions. Although James found this upsetting, I stuck to my schedule and rarely deviated from it. About a week ago, I missed several calls from James because my phone was on DND and he couldn't reach me. He suggested having a key to my place for emergencies, but I declined, explaining that I needed time to adjust to living with someone. Recently, I noticed he had a spare key in his car, and I immediately changed the locks with my brother's help. During dinner last night, I confronted James about finding the key. I assured him it was useless now that I had changed the locks. We argued, and we haven't spoken since. Am I being unreasonable? My father cast me out of our home, leaving me to struggle for 4 long years, unjustly blaming me for money stolen from our house. Now he's back, claiming he wants to meet and has an apology to offer along with an enticing proposition. I couldn't help but laugh in his face. I've never liked my father. His past actions are the root cause. Sure, parents scold their children for mistakes, but my father cursed my very existence. After my mother's death, he spiraled into madness, and being his only child, I bore the brunt of his erratic behavior until I turned 18. I was terrified of him. One night, he burst into the living room, accusing me of theft, grabbing me by my hair and throwing me aside. I wept as he hurled insults, insisting I'd stolen from him. I pleaded my innocence, but he wouldn't listen. The argument escalated until he demanded I leave. When I protested, he slapped me once more and cast me out with nothing. No food, water, clothes. I found refuge at my friend's house, whose parents welcomed me with open arms. They became my new family, offering support and shelter. Despite their advice, I didn't report the abuse. Some twisted part of me didn't want to hurt him further. Looking back, I realized I should have taken that step. Now, 4 years later, I'm a successful businesswoman heading a security company. I found myself face to face with my father, who, unbeknownst to him, was about to discover my achievements. He apologized, attributing his actions to his struggle with my mother's death, professing his love and desire for my happiness. I listened silently, waiting for the catch. His proposition came, a job and a share in his small manufacturing company, assuming I was jobless and struggling. I couldn't contain my laughter. In between my fits of laughter, I shared my success story, revealing my thriving business empire. His dumbfounded expression was priceless. As I stood to leave, I warned him never to contact me again, making it clear I wanted him out of my life for good. As I walked away, a smile crept across my face. It was cathartic to release all that pent-up frustration. That man had never truly been a father to me, so finally feeling happy was a welcome change. But, at times, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd been too harsh on him. Life continued as usual after that peculiar meeting. Then, one day, my father called, his voice tinged with desperation. He begged me to take him in, shedding tears and repeating his apologies. He admitted he shouldn't have treated me so poorly and that I deserved better. His transparent attempt to get a piece of my success wasn't lost on me, so I hung up the call without a second thought. Weeks later, my company had an opening for gatekeepers. I wasn't personally involved in the hiring process, so I didn't pay much attention to it. But as fate would have it, One day while entering the premises, I saw my father working as one of the gatekeepers. My mood soared, knowing he had ulterior motives, but I decided to let it be, as long as he didn't cause any trouble. Late one evening, I was leaving the office building when I noticed him waiting at the door. I initially ignored him, walking toward my car. However, he called out to me with a sad and apologetic expression. He tried to apologize again, but when I declined, he grew visibly angry. He reminded me of the past, the way he used to hit me, and accused me of having the audacity to speak to him this way. I was horrified. Childhood memories flooded back, leaving me frozen. Before I knew it, he was charging toward me, striking me once more. I screamed at the top of my lungs, and some of the security guards rushed to my aid. I shot him a withering look and promptly informed him that he was fired, promising to report the incident to the police. Given my public standing, the police took my complaint seriously, resulting in his imprisonment for about 2 years and hefty fines. I also disclosed the childhood violence to the police, which only exacerbated his punishment. His face haunted my worst nightmares. Just when I thought I had escaped my traumatic past, this incident triggered a flood of memories. I sought therapy to deal with the aftermath of the attack. The therapy sessions helped me cope with panic attacks and anxiety. From that day on, I took personal charge of scrutinizing the profiles of all new recruits in the security department. While this incident had reignited my fears, I did everything in my power to regain a semblance of reassurance. A month after the ordeal, I could sense a slow but steady improvement in myself. The therapy sessions continued, and I began to feel better. Well, it's clear that your fiancé needs to respect your boundaries. However, there seems to be a deeper issue here. If you don't trust him enough to allow him into your safe space, perhaps it's a sign that you both need to reevaluate your relationship. It's crucial to feel comfortable living together, especially if you're planning a future together. Considering your age and the relatively short time you've known each other, it might be a good idea to have an open and honest conversation. Address your feelings, why you feel that way, and discuss how you both can move forward as a couple. Be prepared for him to have his own opinions and emotions about the situation. It appears that the issue here goes beyond just a house key. Everyone sucks here, estate. He shouldn't have made the key without your permission, and you clearly communicated that he didn't have your approval. However, considering you're engaged and living together, it raises concerns about trust in your relationship. Why wouldn't you trust him with a key to your house, especially when he asked for it due to legitimate situations where his lack of access caused problems? Your relationship seems imbalanced, and if this continues, it might soon be one-sided. You might be the one at fault here. Living together and being engaged should signify a level of trust that seems to be lacking in this situation. Do you genuinely believe your engagement will survive after such a significant fight? By the way, if you are enjoying this video and want to be an awesome person, consider hitting the like button. Alternatively, you could go to their house and leave them the last piece of cheesecake. Okay, let's move on to the next story. I'm a 20-year-old sharing a house with 4 roommates, and I had an issue with one of them, Jane, who is a 29-year-old immigrant that moved to our country about 4 years ago for better job opportunities. Jane joined us around 3 months ago to fill in for a previous roommate who left after her lease expired. Jane and I never had any major clashes until this particular problem arose. Jane's family still lives in her native country, which is in a different time zone. She frequently FaceTimes with them when it's late at night for us, usually around 2 or 3 a.m. While she doesn't do this every night, it occurs often enough to be bothersome, around 4 times a week. What's especially irksome is that she engages in these calls in the kitchen or living room, and her conversations with her family are excessively loud. I've spoken to Jane about this issue, suggesting that she be more considerate about the noise and perhaps use headphones. However, she flatly refused, claiming that headphones ruined the experience. I also proposed that she FaceTime during the day, but she argued that her family would be asleep at that time. I asked her to please be quieter because her FaceTiming sessions with her family were waking me up, and I had to get up early for work. While she seemed to understand, she didn't show much enthusiasm for fixing the problem and kept changing the subject. Earlier this week, I had a Zoom interview for an exciting internship that could significantly impact my career. I informed my roommates about it a week in advance to ensure a quiet house for my interview. However, the night before the interview, around midnight, Jane was loudly FaceTiming her family in the living room. I woke up and was clearly upset about it. I asked Jane to keep it down, and she assured me she was just saying goodbye to them. They quieted down for about 10 minutes, but then I could hear them yelling again. I approached Jane again, stressed the importance of my early morning interview, and asked her to please keep it down. She promised she would and apologized. However, around 1 a.m., I was once again awakened by Jane and her family. At this point, I had had enough. I went downstairs and yelled at Jane, telling her to be quiet because some of us were trying to sleep. Her family ended the call when they heard me, and Jane went to her room crying, refusing to talk to me. She said she missed her family and expected more empathy from me. My other roommate sided with Jane, saying I was too harsh. I'm feeling conflicted. I feel guilty for yelling at her, but I'm incredibly frustrated with her for being so disruptive. Not the jerk. It's unacceptable for her to call and wake her family up, yet it's perfectly fine for her to shriek at 1 or 3 a.m. and disturb her roommates. Can't she see the hypocrisy in her behavior? Her statement about headphones ruining the experience was baffling. How can wearing headphones ruin the experience? It's a completely reasonable request, and her refusal makes no sense at all. All right, that wraps up today's stories. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. If you have your own story, feel free to email it to us. The email address is in the description. All right, until next time.